And we are back. And we just finished 2021's Mad God, clocking in at 1 hour and 23 minutes. This is not rated, but this is not for children. I'm glad we didn't watch this with the kids. I think my youngest would have been traumatized by the gruesome imagery throughout this piece. What would you tag this as? Experimental kind of filmmaking, or not filmmaking, but storytelling?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely kind of like a passion project, I guess, because there isn't much of a coherent storyline there. It's more of an experience.
Yes.
Like watching the whole film. I would say 90% of this film is stop motion animation.
Yes.
Mixed in with some live action
characters,
but all the backgrounds are just crazy.
Very detailed.
Very, very detailed. Bones and slime, and it's basically walking through a nightmare.
Yes. I think that's a great way to describe this film. This is written and directed by Philip Tippett, Tippett, sorry. 30 years. 30 years to make this.
Working on this thing for 30 years.
So he gets a gold star for me for that. As far as the story, I don't know what to think. It's kind of all over the place. Visually, it's really interesting. It's really gruesome.
Yeah, like I said, there's the creatures in this movie. They're just pretty much nightmare fuel. It looks like he just took bones and teeth and all sorts of random things, strapped them together and animated them.
Yeah.
The most human-looking thing would probably be, outside of the live actors, is the main character. I guess he's the main character. The guy, the I don't know what you would call that character.
It's funny, on IMDb, he's referred to as the assassin.
Oh, well, maybe that's why he had a bomb.
I guess. The assassin travels through a nightmare underworld of tortured souls, ruined cities, and wretched monstrosities forged from the primordial horrors of the unconscious mind of Phil Tippett. Tippett.
It's
Tippett.
Phil Tippett.
I always want to say Tippett. What am I? Am I trying to make him French or something?
I don't know.
The world's preeminent stop motion animator. I mean, stylistically and for what it is, which is a stop motion project, it's outstanding. It is absolutely 100% outstanding.
You're seeing some crazy stuff. Just the bizarre anatomy and creatures and
just everything, the world building, all of it is just it is nightmare fuel, and it's very detailed,
and the I would say the thing that makes it sort of confusing, and I guess makes it more apropos of being called a nightmare, is a lot of it just doesn't make any sense.
Agreed. Agreed.
It's like you think, okay, well, this guy, he like the little synopsis says, he's going down into this nightmare underworld. He's called the assassin, so I guess he's supposed to be killing somebody,
or something.
I don't know who. I don't know what. He goes. He searches. I would say about halfway through the film, it seems like his journey is done.
Right, and then there's somebody else, but then you lose the thread of him. Like, he disappears.
Yeah, and then there's like another assassin. But is that in the past
or is it in the future?
But it doesn't make sense because the other one, he gets sent down. Basically, the way they get sent down is they go into some sort of capsule, which is attached with a string, and
it's lowered.
An actual actor lowers them into this world. And the first time you see it, he's being lowered through the clouds, and there's all these cannons trying to blow him up and stuff, but he makes it through all that, and he gets lowered into a hole.
And it gets progressively darker and creepier and stranger.
Darker and creepier. There's just bones all over the place, weird dolls, and by the time he lands, he is deep underground.
Yeah.
Later on, we see another guy who's looks similar, but I don't think it's the same character
there's
at all.
Definitely differences, especially in, like, we noticed, like, the little, like, metal...
The little shiny metal on
stuff
him. And he goes down, and he gets landed just on the surface of the planet.
I guess, yeah.
And then he goes on some big journey, and then he has to actually drive down into into the
I
underground.
mean, it looks he goes further. According to the map, he seems to go further on the quest, but then you sort of lose his thread. It's like...
they made it seem like that was a memory of the first guy.
Was it?
Because that
know.
weird doctor stuck that snake in his head.
And then was looking
looking at his memories or something.
I mean, it could be. I don't know. It's so wild.
Yeah, nothing is really that clear.
Yeah.
And like I said, if there was a coherent story in the beginning of this guy going through this journey, it's just dropped.
Yeah.
Because then all this weird stuff happens. There's like metamorphoses happening. Weird baby creatures getting turned into goo. There's a room full of giants and electric chairs being forced to defecate into the mouth of some sort of
big monster.
Big monster who's, I don't know if he was just a monster or just some sort of like, that was just the interface where the poop went into like, hey, let's make it look like a mouth.
Oh, God. Yeah. I mean, this is, some of the imagery on here was pretty wild.
And then all that stuff gets turned into little felt men who are just like expendable creatures that just do manual labor and get annihilated by these like huge swinging testicle beasts. I don't know. It is pretty incoherent. It's interesting to look at.
Yes.
I'm sure most people would probably find it just hideous and not want to look at it at all.
Yes.
But there's something fascinating about the fact that it's just a whole bunch of little puppets and
yes. I mean, just the work that went, and also 30 years. I mean, that's
some dedication.
That's some dedication. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you want to see something that's visually interesting, this might be for you. It's definitely not for somebody interested in a story or plot or character arcs or anything like that, because none of that exists here. It's really just
imagery.
It's really just imagery, loosely connected vignettes, some completely divorced from others. I honestly, I don't understand remember that one scene where you were like, oh, this looks kind of pretty.
Yeah. And then
what was the point of that?
I don't know.
I don't know what the point of any of that was. Sometimes I think they just lingered on scenes a bit too long, maybe because they were trying to fill out runtime, and it's just, hey, we got something easy and it's not stop motion animated. We're just sort of like craning a camera through a certain scene, and it just felt like it would go on for a really long time. Like him driving that car down that thing was
it felt like long. It was longer than it should have been.
It was tedious.
Yeah.
But you're still, I mean, you're looking at a little stop motion animated thing, so you're just sort of like, I'll tolerate a bit of tediousness because it just looks so freaking
cool.
Weird. Yeah.
And we've had this discussion before about how, not to knock FX like green screens and stuff like that, but practical effects are just so interesting. And they definitely lend more to a story when you get a filmmaker or storyteller who can marry the two to make that world pop and come to life, like somebody like Guillermo del Toro. Like if you look at Pan's Labyrinth and stuff like that, like that to me is amazing, right?
Yeah. So
here I'm completely in awe of the fact that, like you said, I mean, most of this, 93% of this is stop motion. At least 93% of it.
A ton of it is. There's every once in a while there's some live actors.
And they try to make them seem like they're
the way they
computer generated, but it's not.
They move in a sort of janky, sort of stop motion animated way.
But you could tell that they're actors, like the nurse,
like the nurse, the doctor,
right?
The guy,
that guy, Alex Cox, the director, Repo Man, and what else did he do?
I don't know. You said he was a director. I don't really know who he is.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was there.
Nancy, that was the other movie.
There was like those weird little Santa Claus creatures that he stepped on
at the beginning of the movie. Yeah. Those were definitely actors.
Those are actors. Yeah. What was it like the stuff like that?
Yeah.
I mean, he's just walking and he just steps on a bunch of people who are like sort of like fighting.
Miniature. Yeah.
And it's just, I guess that's sort of cool. But then again, I feel he's like, I mean, he's the guy who did the little animated chessboard in the original Star Wars.
Phil?
So he's he's all about, oh, let's just throw in some sort of interesting little thing there. And this film was just basically interesting little things on top of interesting little things.
And it's funny that you mentioned the Star Wars chessboard, because some of those monsters and creatures seemed like that, but like more amped up.
Far more gruesome looking.
Yeah.
I mean, remember there was like that big thing came out of that house, and it basically was just like teeth.
Yeah.
And it had a cleaver, and it just
destroyed that
other thing. And
yeah.
you're just like, why?
Yeah.
There really wasn't any point to that. It was just
she must have been in a bad mood.
Seriously, there wasn't any point to it. It just looked interesting.
Yeah.
It added flavor to the hellscape this guy's walking through.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't really interact with any of those other stop motion creatures. He just sort of like hides and then
tries to keep going on his mission. The other thing, the thing that took the baby.
Oh, the plague doctor looking thing.
Yes, I thought that was really cool, and it's like so funny. I'm like looking at it, I was like, this would be really really cool in like a horror film.
Like that thing, I think parts of that were stop motion, parts of it were live act. Like I think somebody was moving those gloves with just their fingers.
Yeah.
And then part of that was CG, because there's no way they're going to get that fabric looking the way it did.
Right, and then like the way it was gliding down the stairs and stuff. Yeah, it was really that character was like really cool, I thought, and really just
you had no idea what was the point of it all.
Right.
Like why? Like he turned that baby into dust.
Yeah,
and then he threw it into a vortex.
Like a portal, and
then like what was that? The universe forming? I don't know what the hell was going on.
I don't know, but it like all went to hell in the universe too, which was interesting. It was like the creation of whatever, and then like the decimation of it.
Seriously, it was like a bad acid trip.
That's one way to describe this film, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it.
I would agree. Like I said, incoherent. No story, no character arcs, nobody that you could I mean, the only reason why you would like any characters is probably because of their design, possibly.
Sure.
This really is just a visual experience.
Yeah.
Don't go in expecting some sort of great story.
Yeah.
I don't think there will be a sequel to this. Maybe, you know what? You never know with the internet now. Somebody out there could just be like writing some amazing Mad God fan fiction.
Sure.
Where there is some
I think there's kernels of this that you can expand on and make into something. And I think that's the other great thing about creativity and storytellers, right? Because you have like these masters that were inspired by previous things, right? And then they come into their own, and now they're influencing like the newer generations of storytellers and stuff. So I think that's really awesome. And I think that when you take a property, and I'm sure Phil doesn't mind, but when you take a property because you love it so much and you take the time to create this fan fiction, sometimes you create like you've world built like these more interesting stories within that universe. So I'm all for anything that inspires creativity.
Yeah.
And storytelling, because I love films and I love the whole aspect of tell me a story.
Yeah. So
for me, that's great. And if somebody takes this experience and expands on it, I would love to see it. Yeah. Because I think even though I didn't love this film, again, I didn't hate it, and I was super intrigued by it. Like, I don't regret the watch experience at all. But the tell me a story side of me is a little disappointed in this.
Yeah, I got to be honest. Yeah, if there was an actual coherent story, this could have been great.
Yeah. It would have bumped it up.
This could have been great, because you'd be like, wow, that was bizarre, and
interesting.
I feel satisfied, like I was told a tale that was interesting.
Right.
This it was, like I said, it's just a visual experience.
Yeah. I'm sure you can find meaning as a viewer. I'm sure you can find some meaning in things there, but for me, it didn't work as far as a story. As far as like an experiment, I thought it was interesting.
Mm-hmm. What did you give it?
1 to 10. I think the fact that it's stop motion bumps it up for me because I think that's like a lost art. And again, visually, this is absolutely stunning and just amazing, even though a lot of it is pretty gruesome and bizarre. So just on that, I would give this a 6.5.
Okay. I would probably give it like a 6.
Okay.
Seriously, this could have been a lot better if it had some sort of coherent story to it.
Yeah.
And you could tell that maybe there was a kernel of a story there, but maybe it would just sort of got lost in the let's just create cool random stuff.
Right. It's too bad like I guess the assassin didn't have like the ability to speak or to interact with.
Well, I didn't mind the fact that nobody really spoke in this movie. Everybody was just sort of like grunting or screaming or crying and whatnot.
Yeah.
That doesn't bother me. I mean, I watch Primal. I love.
Yeah, that's a great
Tarkovsky cartoon, and I love the fact that there is
no yada yada,
no dialogue, but
there is a story.
There's story. There's story arcs. There's character arcs. There's everything in there, and it's amazingly told visually, with no dialogue other than rah, rah,
or the dinosaur,
or some crazy ape man screaming apoplectically.
Yeah. You know what else I was thinking of? I haven't seen this since we saw it in the theater, but the Triplets of Belleville. Remember? We went to see that film.
Well, that had a plot.
I'm saying it didn't have much in the way of dialogue.
Yeah, well, I mean, practically none. I mean, you heard French sometimes.
Right. The women singing and stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, anybody could watch the Triplets of Belleville.
Right.
Regardless of what country they came from.
Yes.
It's just universal, the way they speak, the way they act.
Yeah.
I mean, not speak, but the way they act and the way they told the
story. Yeah. And the same could be said for Primal, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to speak any kind of language to understand what's going on.
Yeah. It's just looks.
Yeah. I mean, I think I agree with you. I think if there had been some sort of semblance of a story of an idea from point A to point B, that would have really elevated this. Mm-hmm. But still, on its own merit, just the work that went into this is phenomenal and amazing. So if you like that kind of thing, if you want to be that kind of storyteller, absolutely check this out.
Yeah, if you really like dark, grotesque imagery,
this is for you.
This is for you. If that's not what you want, you may not be interested in this.
Right, you might want to pass.
It gets, some parts of it are pretty gross, like that surgery scene.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. A lot of it. I mean,
and just like I described, the giants and electric chairs just defecating, and that seemed to be a repeating theme. There were other creatures just defecaking into other stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, this is like hell. It felt like
it definitely was like hell. I mean, those like little felt drones just working and getting slaughtered left and right. And just randomly abused by those disgusting tumor testicle
monster
butt beasts, whatever.
Yeah.
There's some pretty rank imagery in there.
Yeah. But still interesting. So I think if you like that sort of thing, definitely check it out. If you don't, I would say pass. You can check this.
Not for the kids.
Not for the kids. Oh my God. And it was so funny because at one point I was like, oh, we could probably watch that with Jay. I'm glad we didn't.
Yeah.
And Olive would have had she would need therapy.
She would have left.
Yeah.
I mean, she would. That would be giving her nightmares.
Yeah. You can catch this on AMC Plus. I think it's a Shudder original. Again, not rated, but I would say R just because of the grotesqueness of it.
I would say R just because of the grotesqueness.
Yeah. From 2021 at 1 hour and 23 minutes. This is Mad God, The Passion Project by Philip Tippett.
Tippett.
Didn't I say that?
You keep saying Tippett.
Tippett.
Like you tipped over a cup and I say you tipped it. Tippett.
Yeah. Okay. Philip Tippett. I'll get it right. And that's it from us, and we will bid you all a
good night.